Yep, here we go.
Is it
Okay,
on?
so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's... And so when did you learn that trick?
When I was 5 years old.
Is that right? Yeah. We got as far as 1948, and
48, my goodness, that's when I came to the United States.
yeah, and your desire, one of the desires you had to come here was to get the flying going, because that didn't work out in Denmark.
Well, also, of course, I was curious totally on the United States of America, because after we'd been confined for 5 years in the Second World War, you know, I wanted adventure. I always liked to travel. I like to see things. Of course, my mom and dad was devastated that I took off, and now today I understand why, you know, because if any of you guys has taken off somewhere in Europe and never came back, you know, I could understand. However,
Did you see yourself, when you were going to go off and wander, did you see yourself actually going to live? Or
No.
just going
I
off
was
to
just
explore?
yeah, I was just gonna come over and see what was happening, and of course with my friend that was nice enough to pick me up in New York, you know, we headed out in his 1948 brand new Cadillac convertible,
Who was this?
maroon. His name was Tue Nicolaisen. In here, his name was Richard Nichols. He was born in Herning, and I met him in Denmark when he came home on vacation. And we headed for Miami, Florida, and we worked there. That was my first job in the United States in the surf club in Miami Beach. And at New Year's Eve in 1948, I had the Chrysler family at my table. It was really easy. My language wasn't too good, so everything was club serving, you know. You didn't have to take orders or anything. You just...
What
showed
exactly
up.
was your job? I mean,
Well, I was a waiter,
you were a waiter.
yeah. And after that, we headed west.
So how long were you in Miami, though?
Oh, we were there about 3-4 weeks, I guess.
Now, you say your English wasn't that good.
No.
Did you start working on that? Or?
Well, I had to immediately, after I, of course, ended up in Bakersfield, you know. I tried to get away from all the Danish families because they all wanted to speak Danish, you know, and they didn't learn anything. I want to get away from them. So, I came to North Hollywood and visited a friend's uncle and aunt there, Charles and Karen Jensen, who was also from Herning.
Mm-hmm.
And they invited me to stay with them, and my friend Nick took off and went on his own. After that, I went up to Solvang, California, to Arne Madsen and his family, who he was the postmaster of Solvang. And I met him in Denmark also, and everybody invited me to stay with them. I was trying for a job in Solvang, but there was nothing going on up there. So I was invited to a party in the Royal King's Guard down in Hollywood, and I had met Mr. Lawrence Melchior, who was the president of the King's Guard Association. And I also met Gene Hirschholt there. He was an honorary guest at our club. Anyway, that's why I went around asking for jobs, and Mr. Sven Helster from Copenhagen, who lived in Osco, California, told me, "Would you like to work in a creamery?" I said, "I'll do anything. He said, "I'll call you tomorrow." And sure enough, the next morning, he called me and said, "Well, come on up, you know, I'll put you to work in the creamery." So I jumped on the Greyhound bus and headed for Bakersfield. I rolled in here, I think it was in February of 1949.
And what did you know about Bakersfield at that
Nothing. I had no idea what it was. Up on the mountains, I looked down the valley and I saw there was big Bakersfield. I never heard of it in my life. And of course, the first thing I did, I got off the Greyhound bus and started walking the wrong way. I was going to go to Union Avenue, but I headed west instead. Finally realized that I was going the wrong way, and then I walked the other way with my cardboard suitcase, and finally arrived at the creamery down on Union Avenue. And Sven Helson said, "Well, we got to find you a room first." So one of his supervisors took me, and we looked in the paper, and we found a nice little room with an old widow lady down on K Street. And that was my home. I walked to work every morning and walked from there down to a boarding house in the opposite side of town for my meals, and started making cottage cheese.
What was the name of the creamery?
That was Peacock Dairy. Of course, my language wasn't too good, so they were warning me about, like, we have steam and water in the hoses, I said, "What's a hose? What's a valve?" All this kind of stuff. He said, "Make sure you turn the steam off first before you turn the water off." So I forgot, and I turned the water off, and the steam come shooting out of this hose and hit my arm and cooked my arm pretty good. But they were nice enough to put me on a machine where I could work with one arm, and that went on for about 2 weeks. And at the creamery, there were some other families, the Nelsons, and they kept inviting me to their house. And when I came down to visit them, I found out that they had their children was my age, and pretty soon I got acquainted with a whole lot of young people.
And the Nielsen's turned out to be
they were
good friends of yours for quite a...
Nielsen and Edie Pedersen, Hansen, Edie were marvelous to me.
And these were all Danish Americans?
All Danish Americans have been here for years. Mm-hmm. Of course, through them I got to meet a lot of young people. Mm-hmm. And I had to get a driver's license. And like I said, I had to study in order to read the signs and understand what it's all about so I could pass the written test.
What documents did you need to have here to be in America?
Well, you have to have a visa in order to work.
So this was just a temporary visitation kind of thing? Or?
No, it was. I got a quota. See, you could get a visitation visa where you couldn't work or make money, and that was not practical for me because I needed to work, to have an income. So I came here actually on a visa, on a quote, to the American Embassy in Denmark. All with the idea of going home again.
Yeah.
And anyway, the first thing I did, after I got Kenny Nielsen helped me find a car after I had the money. I bought a little 37 Plymouth from an elderly lady, and little Plymouth coupe. Paid $325 for it. And Kenny was a mechanic, so he helped me get it all up in top shape.
That was still, compared to your European cars, that was a big car, I guess.
Oh my gosh, that was in style. And when I decided to go home after I'd been here a year, I drove that car clear to New York and shipped it home with me, and took it home.
How did that come about, going back to Denmark?
Well, of course, I had promised everybody to come back after a year, and I kept my promise. But I hadn't really gotten started in this flying yet. I would hang around in the airport and talk to one guy out there that said that, well, Gill, you better go to night school for one winter, so you can pass that written test before you start your flying lessons. And I took his advice, of course. I went to
wanted you to work on your English too, didn't they say that? Yeah.
Went to night school, and I picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, when I came back to Denmark with my little Plymouth, I was very restless, and I want to come back.
You knew in your heart that you wanted to go back, and you
Yeah,
weren't
but
finished. You weren't finished in America.
I really didn't know what, for any length of period, how long I would stay or not. I just wanted to go back.
Get more of
And,
it.
Yeah, because I was a little bit lost. I didn't know what to do in Denmark.
You
I
had a
didn't
girlfriend
care.
there too, didn't you?
Yeah, but she wouldn't come back with me, so I went on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming back again, then I really started in my efforts in becoming a pilot.
Mm.
And that was in '51.
So you're 51 is actually when you came back then?
I came back in I came back in mid-50s.
And how did you come across this time? Same thing. You took a ship.
I came in on the boat and Greyhound bus, non-stop for 4.5 days, from bus station to bus station, clear across the country, without laying down. It was quite a trip. And of course, now I had no car, so I had to go back to work. I got my job back at the creamery and started saving for another car. This time I bought a real nice little Plymouth, but it was a lot newer. It was I think it was a 48 or 49 Plymouth, and
Much newer car.
put me in style.
Yeah.
And gradually I saved up money, to pursue my flying lessons. And in those days, it was kind of a little bit uncertain of what you could do with it. But I had the idea all along that maybe if I could get in and become a professional pilot, I might be able to sell airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And in and out of ice cream trucks, milk wagons, wholesale,
Yeah.
and potato chips, the nicest chip in the world, Laura's Cutter.
Well, now you had other things going on that might have held off on the flying, didn't you? On a personal nature, didn't you? You met somebody on the boat coming over too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, telephone. Yeah, I met a little gal from Odense, and we corresponded. She went to Chicago, and I went out here, and we wrote each other, and she decided to come out, and we went to Solvang and got married.
Hmm.
And a year later, we had a little 9-pound, 12-ounce boy, guy named Kim.
And at the time you were doing what? Which of all the jobs were you involved with at that time?
Well, then I was running a wholesale out for Carnation.
Carnation.
Yeah.
So now by this time you're out driving a truck around and
Yeah.
delivering dairy product.
That's right. And then, of course, with the family now, and the flying part was kind of put on the back burner for a while because of the responsibilities and stuff.
You still managed to get the basics going,
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
you?
Yeah. Then something happened in my life where I was on my own again,
Mm-hmm.
not due to my desires, and I started in seriously on the flying career.
So that helped you. You had something to focus on.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and there was something that really helped me in that particular period of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I looked forward to go to the airport and
Yeah.
spend my time, and met a lot of friends, and they really it was a tremendous it was a tremendous help to me.
Got you
And,
through a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I eventually became a private pilot, commercial pilot, instrument pilot, certified flight instructor. And then I took the big step one day. In the meantime, of course, I've met a little girl that lived next door to my friend Hanson and Gill Pedersen.
Was she living on her own?
Pardon?
Was she living on her own, or?
She was living there with a girlfriend next door, and I was a little bit shy on getting attached to or involved with anything, but I know I kind of realized that she convinced me that it might work out pretty good. And of course, that's been about 45 years now.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
So that we're talking about Mary, the last name.
Mary Catherine O'Hanlon.
Yeah.
And
so
with the 3 boys coming along.
Right. So you had Greg and Randy.
Greg and Randy and Mike.
Mike, and all at the same time, you were trying to advance your aviation career, and at the same time working.
Running in and out of a potato chip truck at that time. And then instructing on weekends, making a little extra money. And finally, one day I decided to take the big step. I was hired by Jack Landon, who was a new dealer at Cessna dealership in Bakersfield. He was the son of Alf Landon that went for office for the President of the United States.
What time was this?
He ran against, Landon ran against, I can't remember.
But as far as when you got into the aviation career, what year was that? That was in the 60s.
When I took that big step, it was, in 63 I was flight instructor, right? And then that was where I decided to go full-time as a flight instructor, and worked there for a while, worked for Aztec Aircraft. And then Mr. Larry Hall, who was representing Beach Aircraft in Bakersfield, had moved and opened a big facility up in Fresno. And I applied for a job, to take over his spot here in Bakersfield, and they hired me, even without any experiences. I remember Larry said, "Well, Gill, I know you're a good pilot, but can you sell airplanes?" He said that after he hired me.
So what do you think got you the job then? Just
well,
knowing that you're a good
because
pilot?
I was persistent, and I said I'd convince him. I've been a salesman all my life.
So you did give him a sales job, basically.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, I can fly them, I can also sell them. And it started working out good.
Yeah.
I had my office in room 146 at the Skyway House, and began to sell Beechcraft airplane. Yeah.
That was about when?
66.
66.
Yeah.
Okay. And then general aviation was in pretty good shape at the time, wasn't it?
It was
a growth
booming
period.
years.
So
everybody bought airplanes. A lot of people learned to fly, and it was great.
The Beech was a good airplane.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any problem selling that.
If I could get him in the left seat of an airplane, after when I got back, the plane was sold. Not that easy, but
yeah,
you can get him in the airplane. And of course, then the corporate business began to take hold, and the government encouraged to buy new, and there was all kinds of tax advantages to buy airplanes. Investment credit, which was important to a lot of companies. Attorneys, doctors, all professional people, a lot of them were buying their own airplane. Farmers were buying Barons, and they were great years.
Were there any honors through Beechcraft as a result of good sales and
executive salesman of the year, blue coat blue coater of aviation and Beechcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good rewards. You can see the picture up there. I'm standing next to Mrs. Beach.
Yeah.
That was quite a deal. They pick about 2 or 3 guys a year for that honor. Little old Gill Pedersen from Herning got one. And of course, with lots of friends, everything, and it was 2 great years. And then we decided to start building a facility here. And in the early 70s, we completed our big building at Beechcraft.
This had a hangar and training facilities and the works.
First class.
Yeah.
First class fixed base operation and sales.
And your responsibilities went beyond just sales of aircraft because now you had
all of a
employees.
sudden I had to supervise 20, 25 people.
Yeah.
Fuel service and aircraft mechanics, office personnel, parts room, and
That's a long way from working in the creamery.
yeah, it worked out good.
Yeah.
And then the boys start having interest in flying, and then all 4 of you guys became pilots.
Yeah, that was all within the same period of time, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Greg was the first.
Greg learned to fly first.
You taught him.
Yeah.
And
then, of course, Mike became an aircraft mechanic, and Randy was the floor layer, but he had interest in aviation also. And you being up north, I really wasn't sure about your desires, but your mother had an interest in pushing you to become a pilot.
I had never heard that.
Yeah, but she asked me if I'd help you get the pilot certificate.
Well, that's a first.
Yeah.
I had an interest in just the aspect of flying an airplane and never really had the desire to make a career of it.
Yeah.
So maybe she misinterpreted that, but Greg was really the first of your sons to get a career.
Yeah.
Doing corporate flying.
He started out, after I got him educated as a flight instructor, I hired him for the flight school out there. But he didn't have much interest in it. He was really not too good an instructor because he didn't have the patience, And so I got him qualified in the King Airs, and I sold the King Air to a company, and they hired him.
And he's far better suited for that type of thing.
Yeah.
And Mike was working.
Mike was a mechanic, and he never thought maybe he could pass the written test for his private pilot certificate. And here he comes home with, I think, a 98 or 99 on it.
Well, we all had a part in convincing Mike that he was capable.
Yeah.
He always had some
he's passed
confidence problems.
He had no problem with that. He's passed all of it with flying colors.
Yeah,
And now he's heading for Oklahoma soon.
Yeah.
And of course, Randy's building up experience, hopefully he can land a real good job.
Randy had laid floors and then got involved with the flying career.
Yeah, he was, of course he had a problem with his back, and it just forced him to quit what he was doing. He was making good money. Yeah. And we made an airline transport pilot out of him, and got him his job, which he still has today.
Somewhere along the line, in fact, the aviation interest is strong enough to where you built your own airplane. You and Randy and Mike, especially Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without Randy and Mike,
plane.
that plane would still been in boxes, I think.
But Randy's learning from all the folks who had built the same airplane.
Mm-hmm.
He was persistent in learning all the tricks and managed to make a really good plane. And using that knowledge, he's also been doing that kind of work.
When he don't fly, he do all the intricate work on planes that the other guys can't do.
Yeah.
Metal work. Yeah. He's an excellent in that. No, he He's him and Mike have really been the handy of all of us.
Yeah.
Greg, you and I are not that much mechanically inclined, but these two can do things with their hands that we can't do.
Well, I imagine you feel pretty good about how your sons have done then.
Oh yeah,
But
I'm proud of every one of you. And looking back at it, it's just been a great ride.
Mm-hmm. So let's get back to Beechcraft and just now that the aviation boom kind of fell apart there in the 80s, didn't it?
The ever-increasing liability became just prohibitive for Beech or any other manufacturer to keep the prices down on airplanes. And in the early 80s, from 82 on, it just started sliding downhill. And it got to be a tremendous struggle for all of us. And today, of course, they're trying to get something started again with a lesser liability on the manufacturer's part. And it might come back.
But as a result, the facility closed down. Isn't that right?
The cost became totally prohibitive for us to continue to operate. So Beech decided and closed the store.
Where did that leave you?
Left me at the threshold of retirement.
About what age were you, do you think?
Let's see, I was about 61 at the time.
Yeah, so that's a little earlier than you anticipated.
But of course I retired from Beechcraft, but I opened my own little office as an aircraft consultant and broker. And of course, in the meantime, you'll have to remember that the FAA honored me with making me a designated pilot examiner.
Now, this isn't something you had actually pursued, is it, or this is something they came to you for?
They came and see. I had a pretty good knowledge of most of general aviation airplanes, so consequently, I could check pilots out in anything they brought by. And I was qualified at that time in anything Beech fly. So they approached me and asked me if I would consider being pilot examiner. And I was a pilot examiner for almost 25 years. Certified hundreds of pilots.
How does that work? You just get a flat fee when they come in? And
You charge the applicants. The federal government don't give you a dime.
I figure I probably owe you a few bucks by now.
You don't owe me nothing. But it became a burden to me, the rules and regulations, and I finally decided I don't need that, So, luckily enough, I've been in good health, here I am at 75 and a half, second class physical.
You're
Still active as an instructor.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks ago, I educated a gentleman for his instrument rating, and that's 2 this year that I've educated for the instrument rating.
So you really don't get into the basic training
I don't
anymore.
want to.
It's,
No,
that's
not the basic. It's more advanced stuff. And the biannuals, flight reviews, and recurrency in the more complex airplanes. That kind of stuff I enjoy.
a lot of it's actually friends who fly. Isn't that right?
Old customers.
Yeah.
Hey, if I wanted to, Kim, I could be flying every day.
Yeah.
But I resigned myself from that. I got too damn much yard work, and I hate it.
On that, you look back at that trip coming from Solvang over the hill down to that little community of Bakersfield you knew nothing of. Now you know a lot of folks in this town. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I sure do.
Have known a lot of folks in this town.
And
what are some of the interesting people that you've met famous and not so famous?
You know, a lot of the professional people in town, of course. I happen to befriend Mr. Buck Owens and taught his son to fly. And Buck and I are still good friends. And every time we see each other, well, he kind of harasses me. There's that straight Dane. So he said a couple of weeks ago that we were down there for dinner, you know, and he started yelling, "Hey, is that Gill down there? Is that Mary with you?"
So I know you also know another country star that's.
So we had a boy that was born here in town. His name's Merle Haggard, and I befriended him, you know, and he was basically afraid of flying. And so I said, "Hey, Hag, the only way you can get over this is learn to fly." And he said, "By God, Gill, I think you're right." And we went at it, and I made a pilot out of him.
And not just a single-engine private pilot.
No, he became a twin pilot, and I sold him, the last plane I sold him, I think it was a King Air.
Yeah.
And we became good friends. We don't see each other much anymore, but we're still very good friends. I certified Kurt Russell as a pilot.
Oh, that's right. You got a bit of a reputation of being a really, how should I say it, comfortable. Made people feel comfortable when they were taking their examination, and so folks were coming up from L.A. area. Is that right?
I had Bruce Jenner come up, and I don't know how they found me, but through the Beechcraft facility in L.A., I guess. Ricky Nielsen, I flew him. He never became a pilot, though, but his steel guitar player, Tom Brumley, I made him a pilot. And he was formerly with the Buckaroos, Buck's band.
And then he went on to play with Rick Nelson up until his death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember my own apprehension about taking check rides, and I always tried to make people feel good, even if they didn't make it, you know. One guy one time left my office with a smile, you know, and I had just flunked him on his pilot certificate. And the guy outside said, "Hey, you must have been done pretty good." He says, "As a matter of fact, no, I got a pink slip." But he realized, and he came back and thanked me for it next time. He said, "Thank you, Gill. I had some weaknesses there, and I appreciate you sending me back for more training." That's kind of the fun part.
Yeah.
In that respect, we were in Oklahoma City, all our pilot examiners, and there was an airline captain there also. We had to evaluate each other, so he stood up and said, "You know, Gill Pedersen, I got him pegged. He's the kind of guy that can give an applicant a pink slip and the guy walk out of his office with a smile on his face." And here's a funny damn thing, Kim. 2 weeks later, that happened with this guy from Taft. I'll never forget that.
And he went out with a smile on his face,
walked
encouraged
out
about doing it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. Instead of just failing him and saying you're not prepared, you would give him encouragement and tell him how to work it out for the next time.
I want to keep him alive because I was the one that had the responsibility to turn them loose with their family.
Safety's number one.
And I'm the one to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I still have a good rapport with the FAA, and when it comes to renewal on my instructor certificates, it's just a matter of a phone call and a signed application. I get it back. I don't have to go to school or nothing, so that is pretty nice.
So at this point in your life, you're comfortable with the way things are and what you're doing. And
well, hell yes.
Do you have any desires of furthering your aviation career and get into the airlines, or?
I think I'll just stay with the basics.
Yeah.
And it was very rewarding to me 2 or 3 weeks ago. I made the headlines in the local paper. You can see it right over there.
Right on Thanksgiving,
And,
1998.
And article followed 2 or 3 days later, and I have really gotten a lot of hell over this. They have been harassing me right and left, and then of course after they harass me somewhat, they come over and shake my hand and thank me.
It's friendly.
Yeah, it's all fun.
You think your grandchildren will? We've got grandchildren all over the place now. You think any of
And I
them will
look
pick up
forward to
aviation?
teach them.
Yeah.
If they have a desire, you know, grandpa will sure make pilots out of them.
Yeah.
You betcha. So.
Well, thanks a lot.
And thanks for coming, and like my brother says, thanks for leaving.